From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Ayotunde Balogun. Tonight, federal government driving deregulation of oil and gas industry with a human face sets up committee to unbundle the NNPC within 6 months. On our special report tonight, slow pace of Ogoni cleanup. Affected communities still largely contaminated after 10 years of United Nations report on the cleanup. States sue federal government on failure to remit recovered funds into their accounts. The federal government replies, insists international recoveries are governed by mutual legal treaties and not domestic laws. And Taliban speaks on forming a government, promises amnesty and security for all. Plus, we have business, sports news, news from Abuja, and later international news from our London studio.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's inflation rate drops further to 17.38% in July, its fourth consecutive monthly decline this year.
And on sports news tonight, three-time African champions Nigeria will face Egypt, Sudan and Guinea-Bissau in the group phase of next year's Africa Cup of Nations in Cameroon.
And from Abuja, House of Representatives summons Accountant General of the Federation on issues surrounding the nation's earnings.
New possibilities are on the horizon following the new petroleum industry law, and the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timipre Silva, has been speaking on some of the prospects. Mr. Silva maintains that government is committed to implementing the new law, even as the NNPC is on its way to becoming a limited liability company within 6 months. The minister says even though the regulation of the petroleum sector is desirable, the federal government still has to implement some change management processes leading up to the deregulation in order to attract investors and cushion the effect of the removal of fuel subsidy.
24 hours after President Muhammadu Buhari signed the Petroleum Industry Bill into law, the Minister of State for Petroleum, Mr. Timipre Silva, arrives the ministry's conference room for an interaction with journalists on development in the nation's petroleum industry. The implication of the new law expectedly dominated discussions, particularly with the unbundling of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC.
It has given a time frame of 6 months, within which time the Ministry of Petroleum and the Ministry of Finance together will incorporate NNPC Limited. That process will soon start.
Fears over a potential hike in the price of premium motor spirit from 162 naira is also palpable as deregulation of the sector sets in. The minister explains that implementation is not immediate until a framework has been put in place.
There is consensus across the table now that deregulation is desirable. But how do we achieve it? That's the question now. Once we are able to agree on that process with Labour, then we are ready to deregulate.
Not wanting to preempt the president's speech on the PIB, Mr. Silva insists that the 3% compensation to host communities is fair.
It amounts to quite a lot, as they will see. Fortunately for us, this is the only fund that is targeted at the host communities in this country. Because all other such funds were not really targeted at the host community. So I believe that the coming together of community and oil companies and government will, for the first time, really address this problem of host community development.
Justice shall reign.
The Minister of State has reminded here that the nation's crude oil reserves in the last 10 years has remained unchanged at 37 million barrels, spurring the need for more investors into the sector. But more importantly, that Nigeria has the ability to ramp up production capacity to 3 million, which was a target set initially. And this would further put Nigeria in an advantage position, not only in Africa, but in the world. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
It's been 10 years since the environmental assessment report on Ogoni land was published by the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, on the request of the federal government. The report came up with specific recommendations to remedy the devastating impact of the pollution, not just on the ecosystem, but more importantly, on the people. This next report takes a look at the current state of affairs in the ongoing cleanup exercise of Ogoni land.
It's been 10 years since the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, submitted its report on the environmental assessment of Ogoni land, commissioned by the federal government. The report details the extent of environmental contamination, including surface and underground water pollution, as it recommends the remediation processes. Significant amongst the recommendations are critical emergency measures such as provision of potable water to some of the communities before the commencement of actual land restoration exercise. The federal government, through its agency, the Hydrocarbon Pollution Remediation Project, HYPREP, has spent the last 5 years attempting to restore the lands in less complex polluted sites before going ahead to implement the emergency measures. Ogale in Eleme local government area, one of the communities signposted in the UNEP report, is found to have been heavily contaminated underground.
My community is the highest when it comes to groundwater contamination. The Nsisoke area is in Ogale community. The Nsisoke, the recommendation of UNEP was emergency water should be given to the people of Ogale people. But so far, we have seen the presence of contractors for the water project. And like the site where we went to, they have done the clearing, and in the next 2 days they'll mobilize fully to site. And this has given some level of hope to the people of Ogale, which have been living on contaminated water.
The pace is very, very slow. The fast track that the president talked about is not there. And it seems there is capacity issue in the area of being able to carry out the Ogoni clean-up exercise, because so far we've not seen anything to show that in 5 years that they have started so far that anything has been done. The Ogoni is still without drinking water. The Ogoni is still without the audit of their heads. And the Ogoni people are still without the basic things they needed and expected from the process.
Other emergency measures recommended in the UNEP report include providing alternative means of livelihood for the people, evaluating their health, constructing a contaminated soil management center, as well as building a center of excellence in Ogoni land. For the remediation of the polluted lands, HYPREP says that some of the sites in the less complicated areas are being closed out, paving the way for highly skilled contractors to also bid for the remediation of higher risk sites.
So we have higher risk in these sites, and that's why we have insisted that only technically competent companies can adequately handle these sites to the remediation standard required. The sites have high risks and sites have medium risks.
Experts are urging the federal government to take a more sincere and multifaceted approach in the implementation of the cleanup as recommended by UNEP in order to achieve execution of the exercise. HYPREP is also appealing to the community leaders to discourage further vandalism of crude oil pipelines to forestall further pollution of the environment.
The 36 states of the Federation say they are not happy with the federal government's handling of the recovered funds and failure to remit same to the Federation account. To this end, they have filed a suit at the Supreme Court against the federal government on the status of recovered assets through their respective attorneys general who are listed as plaintiffs in the suit. Now, the 36 states instituted the action against the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation, seeking a declaration that by the provisions of Section 162, subsections 1 and 10 of the Constitution as amended, all income, returns, proceeds or receipts derived from confiscated, forfeited and or recovered assets constitute revenue that must be remitted to the Federation account for the collective benefit of all tiers of government. Amongst other things, the plaintiffs are also seeking a declaration that a failure and or refusal of President Muhammadu Buhari, the Minister of Finance, the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation, and the Accountant General of the Federation, and all relevant authorities and or agencies to remit proceeds derived from all recovered assets into the Federation account to be distributed in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution is unconstitutional. They are also asking the court to declare that it is unconstitutional for the President, through the Federal Minister of Finance, the AGF, or any other authority whatsoever, to utilize, apply, allocate, expend, and appropriate same to itself or distribute same in any other manner howsoever without due allocation from the Federation. A senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Femi Falana, who filed the suit in June on behalf of the 36 states, told Channels Television that the Supreme Court is yet to give a date for the hearing of the suit. Meanwhile, the federal government has responded to the states on their quest for the handling of the recovered funds. The federal government insists that international recoveries are governed by mutual legal treaties and not domestic laws. According to a statement released by the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice today, international recoveries are never a straitjacket application of local legislation, but are more or less governed by international conventions, negotiations, and agreement of parties. The statement further adds that Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission Act has nothing specific on funds recovered from indicted public officers, saying it merely mentions accruals and disbursement of revenue from the Federation account, and therefore, questions of recovery of stolen funds from indicted public officers are appropriately dealt with by other relevant laws. The federal government maintains that it is misleading for states to give the impression that such recoveries and usage of stolen funds and stashed abroad are provided for by the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission Act. The statement further reads, "One cannot situate rights and entitlements on looted funds and recovered assets with myopic and narrow understanding of concepts of the application of local legislations." The statement also says, as a member of the Committee of Nations and a respectable international partner, Nigeria must always strive to fulfill its international commitments in the repatriation and use of stolen funds and assets. Now, the House of Representatives Committee on Finance is inviting the Accountant General of the Federation to brief the committee on the disbursement of the quarterly 2% of the total 7% ports development levy collected by the Nigerian Customs and sent to the Accountant General's office. The invitation is coming after the committee observed revenue shortages during an interaction with the agency on the medium-term expenditure framework. Our correspondent, Linda Kigbe, tells us more.
On the first day of this interactive session by the House of Representatives, the Minister of Finance spoke about the nation's worrying revenue shortage and plans by the federal government to borrow as a means of financing the deficit. At the continuation of discussions by the House of Representatives on the 2022 to 2024 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework (MTEF) and Fiscal Strategy Paper (FSP), the Finance Committee says it intends to thoroughly scrutinize the capital votes of government agencies to block leakages and increase revenue for critical infrastructure.
We are all aware that revenue is a major problem we have in Nigeria. The proposal before us stipulates 4.9 trillion to be borrowed to be able to make up the 2022 budget proposal. So our job is to see how we can reduce that borrowing by looking inward where possible.
One of the agencies before the committee is the Nigerian Shippers Council, and the executive director explains the reasons for the shortfall in the revenue of the agency. He says the main source of the agency's revenue, which is the quarterly 2% of a total 7% port development levy amounting to 3.5 million naira, was collected by the Nigerian Customs and sent to the Accountant General's office.
It is a custom that actually determines what amounts to that percentage of the port levy. So we are not even involved, really, in that particular exercise.
Clerk, invite Accountant General's office on the issue of collections by customs, especially the surcharge, the 7% surcharge.
The committee is also to conduct an inquiry into the financial status of a Nigeria Export-Import Bank, Nexim, over allegations bordering on the eroded 50 billion naira share capital of the bank under the past management teams. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, more updates on the Zamfara abduction. Kidnappers demand ransom as police intensify rescue efforts. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you are watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Federal government drives deregulation of oil and gas industry, sets up committee to unbundle the NNPC within 6 months. States sue federal government on failure to remit recovered funds into their accounts. Federal government insists international recoveries are governed by mutual legal treaties and not domestic laws. House of Representatives summons the Accountant General of the Federation for clarifications on the nation's earnings. A new Taliban government promises fairness to women and security for all in Afghanistan. Let's head to River State, where Governor Wike has been reacting to the recent passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill into law and other issues of national interest. According to Governor Wike, who was speaking on our breakfast program, Sunrise Daily, the federal government should devise a plan to checkmate the spending of funds allocated to the communities for development purposes.
Governor Wike, the two-term governor of oil-rich River State, a man who's carried out his duties with great passion, not minding his critics. His developmental efforts stand him out among his peers and has continued to deliver on the dividends of democracy, even though he has just 2 years left in office. From his residence in Port Harcourt, the River State capital, he addresses national issues, beginning with the Petroleum Industry Bill, which has just been signed into law. He wants the government to, beyond just making funds available for the host communities, ensure that the funds are judicially spent.
What we are saying today, like I said before, you pass a bill in the National Assembly, it goes to the president. Sometimes they look at it and see where they could make amendments or whatever. It's just like appropriation bill when it passes into law. So it will be difficult. Like I said here now, what we are told is that the host community will be determined by the operators. What we are told that the funds will be sent directly to the host community, right? And I'm saying if that is the case, then there are problems. And such problems, it is necessary to nip them in the bud. And one of that, you don't allow the community just like that to spend such funds, that there will be a loophole, knowing the antecedents of the IOCs, to cause crisis in the community, for them not to be able to release such funds to them. I was thinking that government would have had a hand in order to monitor the spending of such funds.
He also delves into other issues, this time on taxation policies. He believes government has no business collecting VAT, insisting that that role should be domiciled with the states. The governor is optimistic that history will judge him well, given the number of projects executed by his administration, ranging from roads to other key physical infrastructure and capacity building, which has earned him the nickname Mr. Projects.
Former heads of state, governors and other dignitaries are taking the opportunity of the 80th birthday of General Ibrahim Babangida to commend him for his leadership in the country. Speaking at the first lecture in an annual series, they are unanimous in celebrating the former military president for his patriotism and zeal for Nigeria.
The first annual IBB Leadership Lecture and presentation launch of a book entitled Paragraphy of a General in commemoration of his 80th birthday holds in Minna, the Niger State capital. The Niger State Governor, Abubakar Bello, represented by his deputy, Ahmed Ketzel, says the general has been a father and grandfather to the state and the entire nation.
Today we are witnessing the birthday of an icon, our dear father. We want to thank each and every one of you for those that have made all their remarks here. I have nothing to say much because all the good things that he has done, even those ones that I don't remember, is on record. And just like the chairman of this occasion said, that youth stand to emulate him.
The governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, represented by his deputy, says despite General Babangida's age and retirement from active service, the country still enjoys crucial roles he plays in nation building.
The message to the celebrants, General Ibrahim Babangida, from His Excellency Alhaji Yahaya Adoza Bello, the Executive Governor of Kogi State. I am pleased to join Your Excellency's family, friends and multitude of well-wishers to celebrate you today. I salute the young soldier who stepped up in his early youth to defend his nation in the army, who did so with all his might every time he was called upon, and who stood attentive and unwavering at the duty post until retirement came calling.
Meanwhile, the chairman of the occasion and former head of state, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, in his congratulatory message, explains that the former military president has from his youth till now exhibited leadership qualities.
It is a no mean feat to attain the age of 80 years. On behalf of all of you, I say congratulations to the IBB. We join him in thanking God for being kind to him. He has given him good life, continued good health, despite one or two challenges here and there. And he has been kind to him. From that open who grew up motherless and to some extent fatherless, God has given him all that each and every one of us will wish for himself.
And the former governor of the state, Dr. Babangida Aliyu, commends the celebrant, saying that he contributed immensely to the transformation, growth and development of Minna and Nigeria.
Whatever a leader does, people remember him more for how they felt during his period. You may build all the skyscrapers, you may construct all the roads, but people remember you more for how they felt. And Nigerians felt good. All the other issues that maybe 1% of those who criticize were all efforts to situate Nigeria properly.
As he celebrates his 80th birthday, General Ibrahim Babangida has been commended over his leadership qualities when he served as military president and his leadership role as an elder statesman.
The Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma has been speaking about the sit-at-home order imposed by the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra IPOB in southeast states. The governor, in an exclusive interview with Channels Television, said calm has returned to the state and people are now going about their businesses. Governor Uzodinma says the problem of IPOB has been sufficiently addressed. He was a guest on our Politics Today program.
I know that yesterday, Monday, normal business activities were carried on in Imo State. People went about their businesses and workers went to work, and government also did what they're supposed to do. Their routine services were also provided. For IPOB, we have also addressed sufficiently the problem of IPOB. And recall that during the period, some people under the guise of IPOB unleashed mayhem into Imo State. The bandits, the unknown gunmen, some of them killed so many security agencies, some of them politically motivated to create a situation that will make Imo State ungovernable, sponsored by opposition elements. There are so many factors, but by the grace of God and with the hard work the security agencies are doing now, I think Imo State is now calm. People are going about their businesses without fear of any molestation.
Abductors of students and staff of the College of Agriculture and Animal Science, Bakura, Zamfara State, are demanding ransom for their release. The provost of the college, Habibu May Nasara, told Channels Television that 20 people were abducted, which include 15 students, 4 staff, and a driver. Now, the bandits stormed the institution around 11 p.m. on Sunday and kidnapped students and staff of the college. It's the second time in 2 months that the college is being attacked by bandits. When the news at 10 returns, a look at the Pan-Northern Social Cultural Organization Arewa Consultative Forum kicking against reintegrating repentant Boko Haram insurgents into the society. Join us again. Welcome back. Let's now hand over to the Abuja studio where Markwe Ogoni is already standing by. Markwe.
Hello, Ayo. It's good to see you. Well, we have a little more detail from the House of Representatives Finance Committee, which is to conduct a status of inquiry into the financial status of the Nigeria Export-Import Bank, NEXIM, over observations that 50 billion naira share capital of the bank was eroded under previous management teams. The House Committee on Finance resolved to do this after examining the financial report of Nexim Bank during the interactive session with MDAs on the 2022 to 2024 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework (MTEF) and the Fiscal Strategy Policy. In the following days, several other government agencies are expected to open their books to the Finance Committee, which will scrutinize their income and expenditure profile for 2018 to 2021 in line with the objectives of MTEF. And now, road safety officials may soon begin to operate at night, and that's according to the Corps Marshal of the Federal Road Safety Commission, Dr. Boboye Oyeyemi, at a review meeting on the implementation of the second phase of the Nigeria Road Safety Strategy in Abuja. Dr. Oyeyemi expressed concern over the increasing cases of road crashes at night in Nigeria. He adds that the proposal is awaiting the approval of the Federal Executive Council. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
Thank you very much. Please, let's pick up.
Senior officers of the Federal Road Safety Commission and other guests gather in this hall for a capacity training on the implementation of the second phase of the Nigeria Road Safety Strategy, which runs from 2021 to 2030. The strategy document provides a multilateral approach to road safety management in Nigeria and it's expected to provide a long-term solution to road crashes in the country.
This second edition of the Nigerian Road Safety Strategy document is designed to facilitate a comprehensive view and multilateral approach to road safety management. It motivates institutional, corporate, and citizenship involvement in the implementation framework for road safety management in Nigeria.
In the second half of the year, the Federal Road Safety Corps recorded 5,320 road crashes and 2,471 deaths. The crashes involved 8,808 vehicles and 33,751 persons. 15,882 people sustained various injuries, while 15,398 were rescued from the crashes without injuries. According to the Commission, most of the crashes happened at night.
All the fatal crashes we've been recording occurs between 1 a.m. and 4:30. And they're alarming. And I've already made representation today to the federal government through SGF on how we can do patrol activities at night.
This training is expected to be extended to other stakeholders in the transportation industry, especially at the state level. Empress Simon, Channels Television News.
Push for your dreams, don't give up, and don't be deterred by gender. Well, that's the view of key speakers at the 2021 edition of the She Can Conference in Lagos. The first female managing director of Shell Nigeria Exploration and Production Company, Eloho Iboni, who was a virtual guest speaker at the event, said she will use her good office to encourage more women to reach for the top.
Everywhere you look around this vicinity, all available space is taken up by women from all walks of life in a convocation tagged, "She Can Do More." But just before you run to conclusions of what this is about, let's listen to the convener.
Our own vision is to ensure that in the lives and on the lips of all the Nigerian women, she should believe in herself, to know that irrespective of her background, irrespective of her career, even her gender, nothing can limit a woman. You can do more.
An array of speakers have been drawn, all targeted to inspire, encourage, or affirm something in these women, in person and online. The current managing director of SNEPCO adds her voice.
As a female leader in a global company, I would also do my part. I will build even more female leaders through mentorship, sponsorship, and providing access to opportunities using platforms like She Can.
Having contested 4 times for a local government chairmanship seat and lost, the current Commissioner for Women Affairs in Lagos gives lessons on how she can do more, even in politics.
And then 2019, I became the Honorable Commissioner for Women Affairs and Poverty Alleviation till date. At every stage of my life, I lost elections, but I made sure I didn't give up.
But it's not all about women speakers, as the men showed up.
Everything you need to get what you want is based on you. It is based on you, your ability to influence other people.
A big thank you to Oxford Group. A round of applause please to Oxford Group. Thank you for your support. Yeah. A round of applause please for
Teenagers, young adults, budding entrepreneurs, the working class. Everyone heard a word or two that will push them positively in their next line of action.
And that's all from Abuja. It's over now to you, Ayo.
Many thanks, Markwe. The Pan-Northern Socio-Political Organization Arewa Consultative Forum has kicked against reintegrating repentant Boko Haram insurgents into the society. Now, a statement released today by the National Publicity Secretary of the Forum, Mr. Emmanuel Yahweh, insists that the so-called repentant Boko Haram members are no different from the other groups either agitating for secession and therefore should be prosecuted for the crimes committed against fellow Nigerians. The statement, titled "Unrepentant Boko Haram Terrorists and the Principle of Equity and Justice," notes that the country is currently witnessing large-scale surrender of large numbers of Boko Haram insurgents, among whom are bomb makers, commanders, arsonists, rapists, and child snatchers. The statement reads, "What of those victims bombed in churches, mosques, schools and markets? What of all the men and women in uniform murdered by them? Who can count the thousands of widows and orphans they have created? So what do we do with them? Should we just embrace them and trust them wholesale? Are their moves informed by altruistic repentance? We seriously doubt." The Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, has signed a cooperation agreement with his Sierra Leonean counterpart, Dr. Ambrose Michael Sovula, at the force headquarters, Abuja. The agreement is part of a bilateral policing engagement targeted at deepening relationship between the Nigerian police and the Sierra Leone police. Now, the cooperation will cover core areas of policing like manpower development, intelligence sharing, as well as tackling regional and transnational threats and crimes. The Sierra Leonean police is on a 5-day working visit to the force headquarters, Abuja, led by the Minister of Internal Affairs, Republic of Sierra Leone.
The Inspector General of Police of Sierra Leone arrives at the force headquarters as he tries to leverage on the long-standing relationship between Nigeria and his country. Relations between Nigeria and Sierra Leone goes back to the abolition of slavery. The countries were part of the Monrovia Group during the drive for self-determination by African countries. And since then, military interventions and study exchanges have continued between both countries. The government of Sierra Leone initiated this bilateral policing engagement with Nigeria to improve the policing capacity of officers in both nations.
We should agree to create a formidable, strategized organization that will profile security and safety for people of Africa.
The terms are agreeable to Nigeria's government as the country deals with the impact of transnational crime.
The impact of crime also resonates beyond the borders where it is committed. Hence, it is only through bilateral police cooperation of this nature that nations can successfully confront regional and indeed global security threats.
The police chief takes a tour of some of Nigeria's policing technology before the Sierra Leonean contingent, led by the country's Minister of Internal Affairs, pays a courtesy call to Nigeria's Minister of Police Affairs.
We believe there are a few things that we can do for you that will be commensurate with what you need to support your own security architecture.
Transnational crimes have become a real problem in the West African sub-region, hence the need for better collaboration among countries within this bloc. Nigeria and Sierra Leone are trying to do just that with these bilateral communications. It is hoped that these bilateral communications will prepare police forces in the West African sub-region to handle the challenges that they're facing right now and the ones coming up in the future. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
Business News is up next with Teniola Shabuale.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Ayo. Welcome to Business News. Nigeria's headline inflation dropped to 17.38% year-on-year in July from 17.75% in June, marking the fourth consecutive monthly decline. Latest data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows that food index also fell to 21.03% in July, while core inflation rose by 13.72% from 13.09% recorded in June. At the same time, urban inflation rates declined to 18.01% in July from 18.35% recorded in June, while rural inflation rates decreased to 16.75%. All items inflation year-on-year was highest in Kogi, Bauchi and Kaduna states, while Akwa Ibom, Rivers Delta and Kwara states recorded the lowest increase last month. Unity Bank, in conjunction with National Youth Service Corps NYSC, has held its competition amongst corpers in 10 states of the country in an empowerment challenge tagged Corpreneurship. The Corpreneurship Challenge is the bank's entrepreneurial development initiative that started in 2019 and is essentially a business plan competition where contestants bring up their business plans on any business ideas, which are then assessed on originality, marketability, future employment potential, and knowledge of the project. The Corpreneurship Challenge is Unity's bank's entrepreneurial program, which is targeted at serving coppers with business ideas and also drive job creation amongst young people.
So it wasn't your idea.
With the rising rate of youth unemployment in the country, the Corpreneurship Challenge is considered an alternative by Unity Bank to assist coppers not only with money but with proper business expertise.
We're giving them not just money, but we're also giving them financial advice, managerial support, as it were. So the plan is to support them to start their own businesses, incorporate, and after their NYC camp, we would even continue supporting them going forward.
As the youth corpers are going into the labor market presently, not all of them will be able to get jobs through the government or any processors. But with what Unity Bank is doing right now, Unity Bank will support them so that they can stand on their own and even be employees, not an employee.
No fewer than 10 people pitched their business plan, as the best 3 coppers emerged as winners, with second runner-up winning 200,000 naira, first runner-up 300, and overall winner goes home with the grand prize of 500,000 naira. Winners of the challenge in Kano and Enugu believe the program is life-transforming.
I'm very happy I won. So I'm really excited and happy at the same time.
Thank you very much, Unity Bank. Thank you.
Coordinators of the NYSC orientation camps, where the initiative was held, described the program as developmental for the coppers.
It's a way that they have built to encourage young entrepreneurs to build capacity and also be employers of labor and creators of wealth. And this has gone a long way to encourage core members in this field.
Unity Bank hopes to sustain the program for the foreseeable future to enable more graduates become employers of labor. Well, time for the stock market report now. The equities market made a rebound in today's trade as the all-share index gained 0.11%. Laddie Williams has the details.
And it's the second trading day of the week, and the bull is back on the floor of the Nigerian Exchange Group. About 24 billion naira gained as the bull bellows as the all-share index expands by 0.11%. And investors happy once again. Well, let's look at the gainers counter. Honeywell Flour made the top gainers list. It added 22 kobo to close at 2 naira 47 kobo, followed by Pharma Deco and Wema Bank, while Scar Nigeria led the losers counter. Its share price lost almost 10% to close at 1 naira 76 kobo. Well, let's look at the activity chart. Volume is down to 110 million naira. Value inched up to close at 3.08 billion naira, while deals were lower today at 3,305. Hopefully, the bull continues this momentum for the rest of the week. And that's the stock market report. I'm Laddie Williams. It's back to you.
Meanwhile, major global stocks closed today's trade in the red zone, while U.S. indexes declined as July retail sales declined and concerns about slowing global economic growth intensified. Well, let's take a look at the closing numbers. And that's business news tonight. It's back to Ayo for the rest of the news at 10.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial star 894 hash now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Many thanks, Taniola. The Taliban says it is working on a new government to be announced soon in Afghanistan. This was mentioned in the group's first press conference held today. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The Taliban have declared an amnesty across Afghanistan and urged women to join their government, seeking to convince a highly sceptical population that they have changed. Following a blitz across Afghanistan that saw many cities fall to the insurgents without a fight, the Taliban have sought to portray themselves as more moderate than when they imposed a brutal rule in the late 90s.
But as you see, the Taliban has captured this place also.
The group set up checkpoints on congested roads near the presidential palace and the international airport as thousands of civilians attempted to flee the capital on a flight. A female broadcast journalist, Behesta Argand, spoke to a Taliban spokesman live on TV in what's being seen as an attempt by the group to calm fears among women in the country.
How many more lives, American lives, is it worth?
Meanwhile, President Joe Biden has said he stands squarely behind the US exit from Afghanistan as he faces criticism. He said that despite the controversial withdrawal, there was never a perfect time to exit the country.
We've made in the past.
Medical teams and aid workers in Haiti have been racing against time to provide food and shelter as a tropical storm hits the island. The official death toll rose to over 1,400 and at least 6,900 were injured by the 7.2 magnitude quake. Images show doctors battling to save the lives of hundreds of people, both young and old, in makeshift hospital tents. Search and rescue teams have been arriving from the United States and Chile. 2 senior commanders have admitted their security forces under the control detained and later killed 25 men in June in a territory near Myanmar's border with Thailand. A general and a lieutenant from the Karen National Defense Organization have been suspended from their posts. They denied any wrongdoing, saying the men, who were not armed and not in uniform, were spies for the military and that the troops had to finish them up, otherwise they would try to run away. A series of wildfires are continuing to spread across a number of countries in Europe and Asia. Spanish authorities have evacuated nearly 1,000 people from their homes to protect them from a wildfire that has destroyed at least 12,000 hectares of land in the province of Avila, a rural area about 120 kilometers west of Madrid. Russia is also struggling to contain vast fires across Siberia, as almost 10 million acres are currently burning, with one fire alone scorching an area as wide as 2.5 million acres. New Zealand has announced a snap lockdown after a man tested positive for COVID, the first case in 6 months.
We only get one chance.
The case was detected in Auckland, which will be in lockdown for a week, while the rest of the country will be only for 3 days. Authorities say they are working on the assumption that the new case was the Delta variant. The last reported community case in the country was in February. The US singer-songwriter Bob Dylan is being sued by a woman who says he sexually abused her in 1965 when she was 12 years old. In a civil lawsuit filed with the New York Supreme Court, the woman, identified only as JC, said Dylan sexually abused her at his New York apartment over a 6-week period, leaving her emotionally scarred and psychologically damaged to this day. A spokesman for Dylan said the allegations were false. A large gas explosion in a residential building has killed at least one person and left dozens injured in Mexico City. Rescuers and police officers evacuated residents due to the structural damage caused by the blast and as a precautionary measure to nearby buildings. The source of the gas leak was not immediately clear, but the Mexico City prosecutor's office is investigating along with experts. Ivory Coast has begun a vaccination program against Ebola after the country confirmed its first case since 1994. An 18-year-old woman tested positive on Saturday after travelling by bus to Abidjan from neighbouring Guinea. Workers at the hospital in the city where the woman was admitted were the first to receive vaccinations. The country has 5,000 doses available. And finally, rafts built only from recyclable materials have sailed or tried to sail on the Danube in a unique race. Under the rules, the 16 vessels piloted by Hungarian teams could not be made using boats, kayaks or canoes or any materials that damage the environment. A local winemaker and his team even built a bar terrace and had a bottle of wine on board as they pedalled downstream. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Kayode Alaide is standing by for sports news.
Thank you, Aya. Welcome to Sports News. The Super Eagles of Nigeria have been drawn in Group D at next year's Africa Cup of Nations that will be hosted by Cameroon from January the 9th through to February the 6th. Nigeria will face the Pharaohs of Egypt, Sudan and Guinea-Bissau in the group phase of the competition. The three-time African champions will open their campaign against the Pharaohs of Egypt on January the 11th at the Urunde Ajia Stadium in Arewa. Host Cameroon, seeking a title, are in Group A with Burkina Faso, Ethiopia and Cape Verde, while defending champions Algeria will face Côte d'Ivoire, Sierra Leone and Equatorial Guinea. And Chelsea's returning striker Romelu Lukaku says coming back to the London club at this point in his career is the chance of a lifetime, as he looks to help the club hold some more silverware this season. The 28-year-old is looking forward to returning to play for the team where he admits he learned the basics and is more mature and has more to offer now. And with the Tokyo Paralympics just around the corner, the torch relay is on its final stretch as the flame moves through the last 3 of the 47 prefectures on its way to the capital ahead of the start of the competition on August the 24th. COVID-19 restrictions meant a portion of today's relay was reduced to a ceremony at the Yosuike Park Athletic Ground in Hamamatsu. Torchbearers who were supposed to carry the torch ran around a track before passing the flame with a torch case. And finally, Britain's Andy Murray has won his first singles match since withdrawing from the Olympics, going through to the second round of the Cincinnati Open. Murray, who entered the ATP Masters 1000 event as a wild card, defeated Richard Gasquet of France 6-4 and 6-4. That will be all on sports news. Back to you, Aya.
Thank you so much, Kayode. And the main news again. The federal government drives deregulation of oil and gas industry, sets up committee to unbundle the NNPC within 6 months, even as the Minister of State of Petroleum Resources, Temipri Silva, says government is committed to implementing the new petroleum industry law. And states sue federal government on failure to remit recovered funds into their accounts. Federal government insists international recoveries are governed by mutual legal treaties and not domestic laws. The news at 10. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun. From all of us here, it's good night and stay safe.